Welcome aboard the Dopamine Train, where our ADHD-powered locomotive stops at every shiny thought along the tracks. I'm Obee Won, and with my co-host Rome, we explore various topics and see where the conversation train takes us.
We are officially live right now. I don't know if I'm going to be...
First time live doing our thing.
Yeah, yes, sir. It's been a long time in coming because I know we've been discussing the idea of doing a podcast like this for a while now, but it's nice to have actually like we're here
4 years or something like now.
Yeah, honestly.
Ever since you went into getting your film degree.
Finally putting it to good use, right? We're not even filming, we're just recording audio.
We're doing half the work.
yeah, exactly.
We're gonna have a 20-year anniversary.
Oh Jesus.
Still haven't seen our high school reunion 10-year.
No, we haven't.
Hilarious part.
Elementary
Who's in
school
charge of that?
I don't know. I'm clearly someone who is not competent in following through on that.
Competency, right? I think it was like some kid off of student council or something like that. Like Danny something. He was a short, slender kid with black hair. Now just described.
I love how we just
the population.
Started calling out the individual who didn't have our reunion figured out. But I mean, that would be really interesting to see some of those guys. Do you keep up with anyone else from high school?
Just like I would say a few when I come back and visit the old Golden State of California. But like keeping up in terms of what they've done, I know we have some classmates that played in the NFL. Started working at Apple right after college, all that stuff. We had very high achieving classmates, and sometimes that's great, but also it's like there's me, the potato. You know what I mean?
I guess. I mean, it really depends on how you frame it, because from the default wide POV, it's like, yeah, it's clear that certain individuals have gotten extra visibility based on their roles that they've gotten to. But I don't know. I feel like as I get older, I've found that some of the happiest people are invisible because they don't necessarily need to show, what they're. I had this thought recently where it was like, I heard this advice a while back that was, if you want to figure out how to be happy or how to be in the right relationships, you should talk to the people that are in those things. And I imagine a lot of people that are in good relationships, you don't know about them because they're not airing out their dirty laundry in public. Like they're living. And so it comes across as being invisible. So you may, and also look at how many people who've been ultra successful or made it from a monetary perspective.
Right.
They don't necessarily, like they have miserable existences. And I'm sure there's some that have good ones, but like I'd say give yourself some credit. You may find that if you're living right at your means, you are as content as can be. Then again, I've been going down the rabbit hole of essentialism lately, so that might have something to do with it.
Essentialism. What's that been like?
So the idea behind essentialism is that you are trying to edit out everything that isn't necessary. So you basically spend some time in solitude figuring out what are the most important things to me. Like if you can get it down to one or two, then that's fantastic. And then you just do everything in your day-to-day life to go towards those. And if you're... I should probably backtrack a little bit. It's also, whenever you say yes to something, it means you're saying no to a bunch of other things. So you want to make sure that you are choosing the things that you genuinely want to do, because the idea when you're essentialist, I guess you could say, is it's either no or hell yes. Like everything you do should be a hell yes. Because if you're just saying yes to everything, then you're paying the consequences for doing them and now not being able to do a bunch of other things that might have been concurrently happening.
So so from what I'm hearing is like, if you're going to say yes, it needs to be not just like a soft like to appease and whatnot. It's like a genuine, let's go for it. We're gonna do this. We're gonna follow that dopamine all the way to that action, rather than saying like where you get that saying the yes men, and then you leads to burnout and such after a while because you're constantly saying yes and taking all these other tasks. I see that a lot in college students that are like achievers in a sense, and they find their like success in achieving. I'm involved in a club, a sorority, student government. Plus, I work part time at the medical center. And eventually, like, it's manageable to an extent, but everything gives out. And so, what you're saying basically by saying hell yes is that you're being, what's the word I'm looking for? Mindful of what is valuable to you and that what you're going to get done at the end of the day without the sense of burnout or the sense of having to say yes to everything. Is that correct?
I'd say that is a pretty apt description. And you just actually reminded me. So one of the kind of qualms I have with the whole notion is, one, I think it's great to be clear about what you want to do and then try to only do the things that further you along in that process. But as someone chronically, there's all sorts of things that I could be doing, and I don't necessarily have a particular interest towards any one of them. Like I could find passion in a lot of stuff. So if I were so rigid and inflexible that I always said no to things, even if I was slightly uncomfortable with the idea, there would be a lot of experiences in my life I wouldn't have had. So a part of me thinks, well, yeah, that's great, but you should be open to trying a bunch of different things, even if you're not excited by the idea, because you may find that once you get to doing it, it's actually something you really love, and you see it through a whole new lens now. I guess it just comes down to having a balance at the end of the day in everything you try.
Right, 100%. That, like, it sounds if it's a healthy yes, right? Where you've done the inner work on thyself to understand your values, how you want to construct relationships with others, and what values you have. And once you have that, going into what you just said of I can say yes and be slightly uncomfortable, right? And I think that's a lot of issues or I wouldn't say problems, I would say issues, but of like people today is like, or even I've noticed in younger generations, I know we're both only entering our 30s, but
Dude, everyone wants to make us seem old.
Oh, I know.
Even the people our age want to make us seem old.
The knees started hurting. It's like, it's probably because we haven't been working out.
Yeah, like just take care of your knees. You'll be fine, dude. Drink your water, get your sleep, and you can still feel young and spry. There's guys in their 60s who are total badasses. You can do it.
Oh yeah. But back to what I was saying in terms of like discomfort, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what you said earlier about saying yes to discomfort and leading to something that was a memorable experience or in a sense, a value builder for yourself. The moment there is discomfort of like, I don't get along, I don't like, immediate dismissal. And I don't know if that's like related to extremes and not allowing to be heard anymore. I don't know. That's something we can.
It's probably supported
another time.
It's something that I think it like accelerates what you're talking about. But yeah, I see where you're going with that. Well, going along that same frame of thought, since we're still kind of in intro phase, I want to ask, where are you at right now? What are you? Do you have anything specific that you're aiming towards, or is that something that you're still figuring out?
Basically, you'll working in higher education, and also like rediscovering myself. I felt in the 20s there was such a need to prove, to achieve, and whatnot. And now I'm not so much on the achieving end. I'm just trying to have the balance end.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to explore different hobbies, do different things that bring me joy. So one of those things, as you know, we play the One Piece trading card game.
Mm-hmm.
I started playing golf. I hadn't played golf since I was like fourth grade and started picking it up again. And I want to start to maybe get back into our roots a little bit and play a little bit of volleyball.
Hell yeah.
Um,
That's definitely a hell yeah thing for me. You asked me to play
Hell
volleyball.
yeah.
I'm getting out there.
Yep. So that's what I'm trying to do. And at first I kept thinking like, oh, you need to go to the gym consistently before start doing these things. Because I don't like, I'll never forget like doing that like right off the bat, playing sand volleyball for like 4 hours in like a sand pit, and it packs down, it starts hurting a little bit. But like, you just got to start. It doesn't matter really where you are at physically. If you want to try something, just do it. And that's why
Amen.
I liked, and that's why I liked playing golf a bit, because, and I understand why it's available for a lot of like generational people. Like you can play with older, younger, middle-aged folk, and why there's such a draw to the game is because it's low impact for the most part. You're just you're outside walking around hitting balls,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the end of it. Now I will say some of the most frustrating things in golf is fighting your ball, especially if you sliced, and hopefully you're not by yourself, so you're not just dropping a ball wherever. But yeah, that's to me the most frustrating thing in golf is like you think you've seen where your ball went and it's not there.
So that comes down to the technique of how you're hitting it and mastering your control of the club, basically.
In a sense, but there's also, it's outside. It's kind of like beach volleyball where you have to take into consideration the wind.
Mm-hmm.
So I played yesterday like 9 holes, and we've been experiencing the off put of the recent hurricane. I'm blanking on what it was. And so there's been like sporadic rain and thunder and wind.
Mm-hmm.
And so yesterday, me and my buddies went to a very coastal, because we have the Great Lake up north, coastal golf course, and the wind, you could hit that ball straight, but the wind was taking it, so you almost had to keep it low almost. And so yes,
Oh, really?
because if you hit that at least like 3-4 stories above you, the wind was taking it. And so yes, you could control the way you're swinging, trying to hit straight and whatnot. But if the wind's a factor, the wind's a factor. Now I'm not saying like, hey, that's like the majority of why I'm failing at this, but it is a contributing factor. You have to realize it. So, but yeah, wind.
It's part of the game. It's something that you have to either fight against or use to your
Exactly.
advantage. Where that I think that's why it was so helpful when we would go out and play in the sand, because you're set up or you're conditioned to deal with more factors than you would indoors. So suddenly when you go play in the gym, that bandwidth is freed up to do better at the other factors that come into play.
100%. And like, I will say beach volleyball, if you have a good float serve, it's game over, sonny boy. You don't know where it's going. And that was always my favorite, was do a nice little floater. Doesn't have to be, because I always remember these guys always play volleyball. They always do jump serves and shit. And it's like, okay, you're hitting the ball fast, but the only direction is down, right? Because you're putting topspin on the ball.
Uh-huh.
And as long as I'm getting there at a decent point, yes, the game is, can I get there fast enough, right? But I don't know. I feel like you could get there, if at least as long as you tried or get a touch on it. Granted, some of these guys, like in the Olympics, if you watch, were like serving like, I don't know, 90 miles per hour. So I don't know how confident I am in touching that ball. But
I mean, I feel it, man. It's about the ego and the aesthetic of looking cool when you serve the ball versus the utility of actually scoring a point.
It was wild to me when I was watching, not no hate on the U.S. men's team, when I was watching them and like just even top athletes, the amount of like miss serve, miss serve, miss serve, miss serve. And I'm like, my high school, middle school coaches are coming at me in the back of my head. It's like, just make the shit. Like, it doesn't matter. Just get it
over.
In. Because then at least you have this chance of them making a mistake because we're humans, right? There might be, at that last second, this guy thought, oh, shoot, I should have turned my platform a little left or a little right. Oh, shoot, I should have swung a little left, a little right. Maybe I should have done a soft hit off the block, things of that sort. And I didn't see that, but it's also a faster game, and I acknowledge that, versus what I was doing, what we were both doing in high school. But it's just it's just curious, when does that fundamental part shift into what their game is? I'd be curious. But they ended up winning bronze. It was kind of they lost against Poland to go into gold or silver. That to me was a little bit of a heartbreak because they won their third game 25-16. And both you and I know that's a closeout, pretty much. You dominated that game. You did your blocks. You got side outs every time. And then they let them come back. And I was like, God, this is like, I always forget that volleyball is such a momentum game. And once they lost that game 4, it was, you're playing game 5. You have no momentum. You've given it back to the other team. I don't know, unless you have this fortitude of like, I don't know, mindset, fuck this shit. I don't care where we're at. This is game 0. We're going to play and go with the game plan. I don't know. So, but that's my little rant on men's volleyball for the Olympics. I was very like, why? But ended up working out at the end. They still medaled and still have a solid team. Low-key was looking to see if it was one of the guys we played with in high school or something like that. You know what I mean? Well, because we're at that age now where it's like that's a possibility.
That's where they would be if they had stuck with it.
Exactly.
You know, volleyball is one of those things where you can literally score on yourself by doing nothing so easily. And going back to what you said about momentum, if you guys are not in sync during those plays, then the other team doesn't have to do anything. Like your number one priority, get the ball over the net consistently enough, and then we'll worry about making something fancy happen to try to score on the other team. But there are just so many requirements in order for you to do a simple job that I think it's one of the best ways to, one, improve communication, and 2, become a well-oiled, well-coordinated machine. Because, you know, like in soccer, if no one kicks the ball, it's just there. Like nothing is happening. But in volleyball, if it's on your side and no one does anything, well, you just gave a point to the other team.
Right. Exactly. Net games have gotten popular over the years too, I think. Like,
which games?
Net games. I'm thinking like the tennis, the volleyball,
the pickleball.
Pickleball's the new one on campus. God, I feel like pickleball is a little bit of a cult.
Have you played?
No.
No, okay. Yeah,
no, it's on my list just to try once, because I'm always going to try anything once, you know?
For sure.
But every person who I've ever met who's like played or loves pickleball, they're like, you want to play pickleball with us? You want to come out? We're going at this time. I'm like, whoa. Why is it? Is it that? If it's, I understand that it's popular and whatnot, but it's like I'm getting hit from the Mormon out right after Book of Mormon, the musical, saying, "Oh, you should become a Mormon." It's like, whoa, hold on a second. Let's take a step back.
Right. Yeah.
Again, nothing against Mormonism or anything like that, but it's that energy of enthusiasm that can be sometimes off-putting.
I know what you mean. I mean, I think for one, now is just a time where it happens to be rising in popularity. But the second thing too, because I have played it, is that it is so much more accessible than some of the other net games. Like for one, volleyball, like we were saying earlier, volleyball is really hard. Like for the average person who wants to go out and just have a good time playing sports, it is really, it took a long time for me to just feel comfortable with my platform, with timing my hits for the ball. I still wasn't that good, but I absolutely love it. But for someone who is just starting, it is a very punishing sport. Tennis, as well, as like the courts are so big, you have to hit the ball with the racket a certain way, and you got to hustle all around the court if you want to return it. There's a lot of technique and strong mechanics that are required for these sports to just function at their normal pace. With pickleball, it's like I get the simplicity of ping pong, but I have the opportunity to work out like I'm going for a run, if that makes sense. So I think that it finds that happy in between where normies, I hate using that word, but it's the most apt one. They can just go out there and play it. But I also don't want to qualify it as a normie sport, because when I played it, I was actually on a cruise ship with a lot of older folks, and I got absolutely demolished by people four times my yeah, it was crazy.
Was it
Not
because
4
of
times.
their that reminds me of like back in my day. Back in high school when I would play against these old guys at like Huntington Beach, and their ball, like, you had the gift of youth, so you chase that ball down, running around, getting it for one play if you made a mistake and whatnot. But these guys would have extremely good ball control, and so it didn't matter really how hard you hit the shit. They were digging it and they were putting it back over your net. Going back to what you said before of like the main priority is getting it back over the net, right? Nothing else. And so was it like that in the sense of like they just had this extreme ball control where you're just like, I just have the power of youth to help me.
Yeah, well, I think having a sports background helped. I was able to hang a little bit, but every time the ball went so much as a foot, like I basically had to hit it away from them, but in the court in order to score. If the ball was anywhere near them, then every time they made contact, it was coming back over the net, and they would just keep sending it back to me until I screwed up, or they hit it someplace I couldn't reach.
Pick on the new guy mode. No, I just remember like from volleyball, you would choose like the coach would assess like in warm-ups who's like their worst passer or something like that. If it was like they're outside or occasionally, like I think probably 10% of the time was like the libero for some odd reason was just having an off day. You would choose that one outside, and they're like, you're just serving to that guy the whole time until he's tired.
Yeah,
like, and then he'll
just supercharge his ability and his endurance. Yeah. I guess.
That's how I just remember that picking like. I don't know if it was. I think it was mostly in club that would happen. They're like, you're gonna serve to that one guy on the left every time, and have him screw up, and then because the pass would be off, he'd get the set anyway because that's the comfortable set for the setters, that outside hitter. And if you have a big block, it's just downtime for him. He's just swinging, getting frustrated, and continually just compiling it until he gets subbed out. I remember that happening one time. It was just hilarious. Of the guy just kept hitting like blatant, like was hitting the crap out of the ball, but just into the middle blocker every time, and I was just like, free point. Like the guy we had was like 6'6" in the middle. So and this was back when we were like 15, 14. So that's a big boy. At that age time, it's like so long.
I definitely felt like a little kid around some of those guys.
Right. And they're getting bigger now too. I've noticed like a lot of athletes in terms of height versus when I remember there was big guys like 6 foot above, but now these I'm seeing a lot of I see them at like the students and whatnot. They're like 6'5", 6'6", and that's the whole team. Um,
It's the genetic super soldier
oh,
testing.
it's the hormones. It was that COVID vaccine, man.
Yeah.
It supercharged them in their growth spurt.
Yeah, it's all part of the bigger conspiracy to have super soldiers.
Super soldiers, God. If there was going to be any super soldier, it'd be like AI robot. That's where I see that shit going, to be honest. Terminator.
Yeah, if they can get it smart enough to do its job instead of writing a soliloquy based on 42 YouTube videos it's been trained on.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
I still feel like it's so, at this point, it's so unpredictable. You can, I mean, if we're talking about something as simple as image generation, then like 80% of the time it gives you okay work, and then every once in a while you get something really good, but it's unpredictable.
For like, are you talking about for like generating like writing, like AI generated art or things?
Well, yeah, like it doesn't pick up on like, for example, on my stream we have Jascal. He's an AI bot, and sometimes he says something that's hilarious, and everyone, he obviously doesn't know what he's saying because he's not sentient, but it is applicable to the context of the conversation that we're having. But then every fourth or fifth statement is just out of the blue and has no idea. So it's like clear he's not really reading what's going on. He's just extrapolating a bunch of information and then supplying a response based on a prompt it's been given. So the idea that AI is this intelligent thing, it's like there's a huge gap we haven't crossed yet. It's the intelligence part. Like if you can train something to compile knowledge or respond based on compiled knowledge, that's pretty cool, but it is not its own unique inference. There's still a lot of hand holding that you have to do as the organic
the organic
in order to make it work.
So what you're saying, basically AI is at the point of non-critical thinking in a sense. It's just, this is the information, I'm making an educated guess on this information, kind of like I'm like the best way I can describe it's like autopilot in a sense, a little bit. For like, I don't know how autopilot works, but that's like where my brain went, was like, this is a computer program. If like wind current increases, then I'm doing this. If wind current if this number decreases, I'm doing this. Versus like, maybe there's a whole ass hurricane coming outside, but I'm just going off the numbers of my gauges and measurements, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how autopilot works either, but that no worries. I think, I mean, you're using the analogy of something that can support you as the pilot, and obviously there are manual. The thing about those types of jobs is you are trained to understand how to do everything manually, and then the automatic functions come in as a supplement. So you as an expert can really understand when it's working, or like, well, this is kind of an aside now, but people who use ChatGPT to write their essays, it's not a great idea because one, you're not learning how to write, but two, you don't know if what it's giving you is actually useful unless you're already a good writer who, like going full circle, knows how to write.
100%.
So yeah, I think for it to truly be transformative in the way that people imagine AI from Terminator and movies and such, it has to think like a human in a way, but smarter and faster, obviously.
Right. It's very interesting to me in terms of like private industry with all we just said, right? You have this the private industry in terms of like artistry, we'll just call it that category of, oh, AI is going to take our jobs, this and that. And it based off what you said, right? It's foolish on the major conglomerate to just say, you know what, we're not doing hiring artists anymore. We're just going to do AI for that simple fact. But it seems like private industry is so bent on keeping their like profit in a sense that they're willing to like sacrifice the quality in a sense. Is that a correct statement?
It depends. Yeah, I would say it really depends on how easily automated the job is, because artists can, this is not to take away from artists, but usually what they're requested to do is something that can be recreated by, like, for example, I could go on Fiverr and I could hire someone to create a portrait for me, right? And it'll come out a certain way based on that person's expression and however they do it. But I could ask 100 people to do that. In fact, I could ask someone who's never drawn in their life to do the same thing, and they understand what a portrait is and can accomplish the same goal. If you have enough reference material, that is precisely what AI can do. Because I mean, I could go on and download, what is it, the Face app? There's a bunch of apps out there where you just feed it a bunch of your pictures and it'll give you cool looking portraits where you look like a movie hero. So because that is such a generic type of request, then it's easier to just take that and create it using a computer. The part where AI is not able to perform as well is in innovation. So coming up with a new idea, AI can probably compile a bunch of different ones that you've heard before, but it can't really give you a good reason as to how it came up with those. Unless you yourself are creative, if you just take whatever idea it churns out for you, there's no guarantee that's actually going to be good. That's where that's what makes humans unique, is that inspiration aspect. But then again, in my own personal experience, there's lots of times where being creative takes a lot of bandwidth. And so if I can ask an AI, hey, give me 5 ideas that are within this topic that I could potentially discuss, and it gives me 5 of them and one of them is decent, then suddenly I've lit the match for the work that I'm going to do, and I've offloaded some of the critical thinking that I had to do prior, which I think is very, very helpful. Again, that still requires you to do the work.
Makes sense. It sounds like it's based off what's compiled, and I think that's where you could get into trouble per se, like with artists, and that's why I think copyright's a little important, so you get paid for your original work. But like I think that's what's happening a little bit, is they're getting all this source material to feed this AI, but are they allowed to use that source material? Who owns the rights and whatnot? And that's where I could see, like, because that's the big discussion right now for AI and like artistry for multiple industries, is this is going to take my job.
Right.
And I think that the way you can combat that, right, is if you are coming with like unique things and whatnot, and this is your stuff, way to copyright. Maybe we start going back to the popularity. I don't know if NFTs are still a thing or if those are
not in any positive way, shape, or form, or any good way that I'm aware of.
Oh, good to know. I remember when it first came out, everyone was hopping on that train because it was like,
I was definitely on that train. Yeah. Yeah, I was very excited. I'm very disappointed now, that's for sure.
Yeah, I liked the concept. If we're looking at like in terms of it's a unique commodity. It's like the same let's be honest, right? It's exactly like my One Piece cards.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It is cardboard that is shiny. But I think the only difference between that and an NFT, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, is one is digital and one is not. And I think we still have this thing of like real and virtual. Real trumps virtual, right? And I think
I can tell you exactly because there are virtual items that do regularly go for a lot of money. And I would say, and this example has been cited over and over again. It's the fact that people will pay thousands of dollars for an item in Counter-Strike. And the reason that works and NFTs don't is because NFTs put the cart before the horse. And you had a lot of scammers and people who didn't want to really create anything. They just wanted a means to get wealthy quickly, who are just putting projects out there and saying, hey, you'll 10x your return in a week or whatever, whatever financial scheme you had. And same issue with the NFT games is that they would release these games, the items in the game would be NFTs, but no one cared about the game because the game was terrible. It was an afterthought. And Counter-Strike was a game long before it was an economy. So unless you create something that people genuinely like, the reason I was excited about NFTs is because my number one priority was to develop as a creator that people enjoy watching. I look at it this way. If you go onto my Twitch or my YouTube, you don't have to pay anything to get the baseline enjoyable experience. But if you want to expand on that, you start to subscribe, you start to unlock new things. And if you really take stock in what I do, then you get an NFT. And then as my channel grows, then that grows in value. And if people care about trading things, which clearly they don't, not in this context, they care about trading other things, then that would be valuable. But that's not how it panned out to be. And that's, just is what it is, because no one was interested in making it good. They were just interested in making it profitable as quickly as possible, which meant there was just garbage out there on the internet.
They were like, so it sounded like the problem with the NFT market is you had some good things out there, probably like maybe 1 to 10%, and then the rest was just flooded garbage. It's kind of like headphones, right? Where you have your good quality headphones like your Sonys, your Beats, your Bose, but then also you have your crap, which is like the JVC gummies, the ones that you're buying at Five Below in various different things and just out there, right? And so,
yeah,
and it sounded like you had more of the JVC gummies in the market rather than a good spread where you had like a variety in a sense of good quality NFT to trash. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the thing is too, pretty much I would add on that, at least with headphones, they allow you to listen to music. The NFTs for the most part didn't do anything other than exist for the sake of saying that you quote unquote had them. I think in order for them to work is they need to function like tokens. Like, what do you get by having the NFT? Like, what does that give you? And there were some projects that did this, but it wasn't practical. Trying to buy an NFT was a nightmare. Like, there were gas prices, and I went down the whole rabbit hole of trying to do it. And the average user would never have been able to figure it. There were people who were telling me like, yeah, sure, I'll try out your NFT thing. And it just, the concept was so convoluted, or the process of getting one was so convoluted that it was like, no, it seems shady.
Right.
So it was a multitude of factors,
like
but
I'm sorry it didn't work out, unfortunately.
Oh, it's okay. It was a great learning experience because it was the first time that I invested a significant amount of money into something that was a complete failure, and it made me less afraid to do that, to try that, to get burned, and it made me more prudent about deciding what sort of things I want to get into in the future. You can't get excited right away because there's no, I mean, I'll be honest. I did have the idea of dollar signs in my eyes at one point, because I thought if I'm going to put work into something, work smarter, not harder, then maybe I do this and I turn a profit, and then I can, obviously I always had good intentions from the beginning, but there was a lot of hype around it, and it was a bubble, and I fell for it, and I spent money, getting involved in it. So,
it happens, man.
I hate to end it because I have like 30 questions I would love to go over with you here. But I have to get going, unfortunately. I really appreciate having you on here. And, I'm looking forward to doing more of these in the future down the line if you're interested in doing that. And it was a real pleasure getting to chat with you today.
Yeah. Likewise, my friend. I think we're on to something. I think it's the comfortable casual. From what to sum it all up in a sense is don't invest in NFTs.
Play volleyball.
Play volleyball. Follow your passions, and also it's okay to be uncomfortable and try new things. Just know thyself.
I would say that is right on point. We will be back on at another time. I'll talk to you later.
All right.